Good morning, friends. Hello. How are you this morning? I pray you are well on this Tuesday, the 11th day of July. Good morning, good morning. Hope you are grand. Hello, hello. Hey, good morning. Hey, Donna, good morning to you. Hope you're doing, I'm glad you're doing well. That is great to hear. All right, friends. Yeah, don't ask me why I drink from my winter mug in the summertime. Don't ask. I don't know. It's just a thing that happens. Hey, Karen. Good morning. It is a beautiful summer day. It is truly this. I think in some ways maybe the first day that just feels totally like high summer from early morning and the smells and the beauty of it all. It really is just one of the very first, I think, where we are, that at least that I've experienced or noticed. So, hey, Jamie, good morning to you. I hope you're healing well. Our friend Jamie had a little work done, so keep her in your prayers, friends, and we're pulling for you. Hope you're doing well. Oh, good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Hey, Vicky, at the Holocaust Museum. Ooh, that is a heavy one. That, yeah, it was the shoes that got me when I was there. That was quite the display. So anyway, hope it's meaningful and good. We'll catch up with you for sure. A little more tinkering. Getting old is not for the weak. It is for sure. All right, friends. Good morning to you and welcome on this, the 11th day of July, on this 11/11. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're a part of this journey, and I'm glad that you can hear my voice, because the hope is it's an encouragement to you. The hope is that it is a joy to you. I want to just talk about one of the stories of Jesus today, which is this, and maybe give us a twist on it that we hadn't kind of encountered before. And this comes from it's the 5th chapter of the Gospel of John. You can go look it up if you want, but there's this. So it's a story where there's this man who's lying on a bed. It's who is debilitated. He is handicapped in some way. He's unable to get off of his mat, and so he spent his life kind of living on this mat and begging for help and getting help from people around him. But he is at this well at Bethesda, and so the well is this place of healing. That there was the belief was that there was an angel that would come down and what they would say troubled the waters, and so it would kind of turn into like a little divine hot tub, and that when the waters were troubled, as it was said, if you went into the well, into this little bathing area, you would be healed. And so and this man had spent 35 years laying on this mat next to this well, and that he had and he encounters Jesus. And in the encounter with Jesus, he says, I just haven't been able to get, every time the angel comes down and the waters are troubled and that I could be healed, there's no way I can get off my mat to get in there. And often this is kind of one of these stories of kind of seen as one of these stories about the things that we can't really do anything about, that he really is unable to get into the water. But then you reflect on it for a minute and you realize, wait a minute, he'd been there for 35 years. You mean to tell me in 35 years, no one has ever wandered by that would just give him a kick and roll him down the hill and let him splash in the water when the angels, just nowhere along the way could he possibly have encountered anyone that would help him to get down into the water in all of this time. Now, the reality is what we it's one of these things where we start to actually realize what's really going on here, which is he's actually got a decent life for himself on the mat. Like, he's laying on his little mat, and he may be debilitated. He may be less than he could be. He may, if it were he healed, but he can get by. He knows the people to ask when they walk by that will give him money to get by. He probably knows a few people in the neighborhood by now. He's been there 35 years. That he probably has a few friends that are around, or at least people that tolerate him. He's been able to survive his entire life and all of his days up until that point. And even though the healing is just right next to him, there's this way that actually stepping into that healing would jeopardize this whole life that he has. It actually would change everything about him and everything about the life that he's living. And so Jesus encounters him, and he says, and he encounters this man laying on a mat next to this pool from which he could be healed. And he asks him a question, which is actually Jesus' favorite question. It's the question he often, of the questions he asks, it's one of the questions he asks the most often. And it is this simple question: do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? Now, for all of us, I think there's an immediate reaction. There's it's almost immediately offensive, isn't it? That it's almost an immediate, what do you mean, do I want to be healed? Of course I want to be healed. Of course I want to be well. Of course I don't want to have my heart broken. Of course I don't want to have my body broken. Of course I don't want to be filled with anger or with resentment. Of course I don't want to have lost all that I've lost in my life, of course I want to be able to do the things that I want to be able to do. All of this takes place, and Jesus asks him this question, and then heals him. You see, this is the thing, and this is really what I want to talk about today. Is this this was lead up to get to this place? Is that where Jesus says, "Rise and take up your mat, take up your bed," and immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed and walked on the same day as was the Sabbath. Take up your bed, take up your mat, and walk. Now, this is 35 years worth of laying in the dust. This is 35 years worth of junk and dirt and life and sweat and all the other things that come out of human beings. This is 35 years of all that has been kind of neglected over time. And he says, he doesn't just say he doesn't just cure him, make him whole, say get up and go. He says, take your mat. Friends, there's a way. This is all to get us to this place of thinking, this is I think it's probably the number one way in which modernity has just come to kind of crush our souls, have left us on the banks without of the well of Bethesda without being able to get into it. And it comes from this, that we are the actors of our life, that we're the ones that have to do it and get it done. Just do it. Just you be proactive in your life. You be the one that has to act and has to make it happen. And then maybe God will catch up somewhere behind you. Then maybe God will, what is the great line, which is absolutely anti-biblical. God helps those who helps themselves. Nowhere in that is, first, A, nowhere that is the Bible. B, it's actually not even true. That's not the way the divine works. The way the divine works is the way this guy at the well at Bethesda encounters, actually, I think, God's grace for us. Because here's the thing. that I think we have to expand the way we think about this when we think about how God works, which is God is the only actor. God is the only actor. God is the only actor. I'm saying it 3 times because it's a thing that we can't conceive of, because in many ways it's outside of our lived experience. But if we step back for just a moment and look at our lives, we actually can see the truth of it. And here's what I mean. That we are always acted upon by God. We are always acted upon by elements of the world, by angels and sometimes by demons. We are acted upon by all of these forces, and we are always the reactor to them. Now, wait a minute. You might say, your little modernist sense might just say, well, wait a minute. No. There are these moments in which I have found the courage within myself to step out, within the intestinal fortitude to be able to do a hard thing that I've been able to with God nowhere in sight, I have been able to effort my way out of certain things. And I don't doubt that was your experience. But here's the question I want to offer you is, where inside of you did that courage, did that desire to be healed, that desire to be more than you were, that desire for ambition, that desire to love another person so that you might be loved, that desire to move up, where did that start in you? And it is my supposition that even our own deepest desires are desires implanted in us by God that bring us into greater and more beautiful love. That even the things we think, even when we're having the experience of just being us, and when we think we're the most disconnected, that still it is the breath of life that is breathed into us every moment that enlivens the flames of our own passions and our own understandings that are a part of us, and that comes from God. What we get to do is decide what we're going to do with those things that arrive to us. And so when God shows up to the man at the well of Bethesda, when he shows up and says, "Do you want to be healed?" It's this way of being the first actor. It's the symbol of being the first action within us. The thing that would pull us towards light, that would pull us towards goodness, that would pull us towards grace. We are always acted upon. We're always acted upon. We are always the reactor. One way is to think about it is that we are people whose job it is to participate in the recreation, the resurrection, the bringing of new life. Well, why is there a bringing of new life? Because the first life was implanted to us in us by the one who made us. Are you seeing it? Is it? Are you with me? Everything that is a part of us, we've been given this, and we are, in this sense, sovereign individuals before God. But that sovereignty is a gift to us, and that all good desires within us, all beautiful, all thirsting and longing for the good and the true and the beautiful, every moment we ever tried to do anything right was never ours to begin with. It has always been God implanted within us and throwing and bringing that forward, and that our job, our gift, our invitation in this is to pick up our mat and walk, to take responsibility, to take the life that we have, not the life that we want, to take the life that we have, the mat that we have with all of its stains and all of its goo and all of its dustiness and all of its dirt and all of its, to take it up and to walk, to react to the encounter with God, to react with the encounter with Jesus that happens within us. You see, we react to all intents with this kind of idea that we're independent. But the reality is we're always reactors. And so, and I tell you all that to hopefully, that same little, kind of stumbling block that the man at the well of Bethesda was hung on is also the same stumbling block that I think modernity and the world in which we're in tries to hang us on too. We just couldn't get there. I just can't stop drinking. I just can't stop eating. I just can't get myself to the gym. I just can't do the things in which I feel like I need to do. That all of this way that modernity had piled on us as the originators of all goodness and all strength and all willpower and all truth, that we're the ones that have to incarnate it and discover it, and that we then are the ones who have to go out and get ourselves in the pool when the angel shows up, and then we're the ones that have to can then accept our healing. It's not at all how any of this works. That ours is to remember that God alone is the one that acts. God is acting within us. God is acting upon us. God is acting for us, both in our past and in our present and in our future. That God is conspiring for us. And that we can live actually in this sense, rather than the sense of paranoia, or even metanoia, the sense that we have to turn our paranoia, the idea that the world is out to get you, metanoia, the idea that we need to turn our thinking around, but we can actually live into this idea of pronoia. I talk about this every once in a while, but it is. I think that is actually the proper way of what we're talking about here, of the way of thinking. This notion of pronoia, this notion that everything that's happening in the world, that everything that happens to us, and everything that is a part of our lives, that is somehow in some way within it and around it, the world and the universe conspiring for us. Again, don't hear what I'm not saying. That doesn't mean that everything that's ever happened to you is good. That doesn't mean everything that's ever happened to you is right. But that means in the process of your lived in life, your lived experience, is that God is the first actor and acts and is the only actor, and that all that we are is a shadow of reaction in that. That one of my favorite theologians says that again and again. He says that when we move one thing, God moves 1,000 things. That God is constantly the actor, and that actually, when we find ourselves in these places, like when we're stuck, where we can't step into healing, where we can't seem to get it right, where we can't seem to, that was never our job in the first place. To feel like we can do that stuff. Our job was to react to the action upon us, which means, is there a tiny scooch of just a drop, just a drizzle of love in your life, just a drizzle of just truth, meaning that some right thing that you could do? Is there a fiber of joy that you might be able to simply reach for in the course of our days, and that in the dimness and in the limitedness of our acting, our reacting rather, we to these little tokens of joy or of goodness or of truth that we might find in the course of our days, that it is those things that when we begin to react to them and to draw them in, and when we get to react to the things that would destroy us and maybe just not give them quite as much attention, that when we understand ourselves as the business of reacting, we take ourselves off the hook as having to be the one that gets it all done. Because we never will. And it's such a setup. It's such a heartbreaking setup that we can spend our lives on our mat wanting to be healed and yet kind of stuck in our dysfunction because we believe that because we were sold the story that it was all up to us in the first place and we were the ones that have to do it. And we're not. All we have to do is to react to the tiny joys, to the small beauties, to the beautiful wonders in which we find ourselves in our lives. React to those. React to those and draw them in. And if we can bring those a little more inwardly and a little more understanding that those are things coming direct to us from God, that those are God's actions directly upon our life, to be able to, and they might be tiny, they might be stupid, they might be inane. It doesn't matter. What they do is they open us to the encounter with Jesus the Christ, who then can say to us, rise and take up your bed and walk. Take up your mat. And immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked. And it was the same day was on the Sabbath. There's a reason this parable, this story of Jesus takes place on the Sabbath, because it's a rule breaker. And one of the things about understanding the reality of God's grace that places us in the reactor phase is that it breaks all the rules. It breaks all the rules of who we think we are, of how strong and capable, and it breaks all the rules of our ego, like all those rules that says, "Oh, you're a good boy, Andy. Oh, you're such a good boy. You're so nice," or you're so, or you're so strong, or you're so smart, or you're so, whatever it is our ego tells us, whatever it is our sense of ourselves tells us, it breaks all the rules of what is supposed to hold our divinity in kind of the Sabbath sense, but invites us into true wholeness. Now, this cuts a lot of ways. Healing isn't necessarily cure. It doesn't necessarily mean that all things in our lives are gonna be reconciled and immediately. But what it does do, when we kind of make this mind shift, not from the paranoid that things are out to get us, not even from the metanoid where we feel like we've got to turn it around, but where we move ourselves into the pronoid way of being, that this whole world is acting upon us for our own good. That is that the universe is conspiring to bring us goodness. And that when we see that goodness, when we see that wisdom and the way we might be, when we see the true, the good, and the beautiful, when we encounter the joys, when we open ourselves to a little more love, and all of that, we are able to rise and take up our mat and walk and be made whole. All right, friends, that's my hope for you today. Peace and grace to you. I pray that you have a great day. We'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.